Hello, this is John Ruzek with the University of Minnesota Alumni Association. Thanks for being here today for today's webinar. Preparing for college admissions can be a time of frustration and anxiety, but it doesn't have to be. And our webinar presenter today will be joining us for about a half-hour conversation regarding the latest in college admissions and tips for parents and students in this process. Let me move on to the next slide there. And we'll also have some time for audience questions as well. Today's webinar is brought to you by the Alumni Association, where we're having conversations with experts and campus colleagues about career life and learning topics. This initiative is supported by our members. We welcome all who attend these webinars, but if you'd like to learn more about supporting the Alumni Association, visit us at umnalumni.org/membership. And then lastly, we have a webinar that got rescheduled from April that's now going to be coming up on May 18th with Dean Laura Bloomberg of the Humphrey School of Public Affairs, Leading Together, Finding Common Ground in Uncommon Times. And you can register for that at umnalumni.org/virtual. You have joined the presentation today listening via your computer speaker system by default. If you'd like to switch over to the telephone option, you can select that in your GoToWebinar panel. And as I said, we'll hopefully have some time for some questions near the end of the presentation, and you can type those in along the way on your GoToWebinar control panel. So we do want to hear from you if you do have a admission question, and if possibly if we're not able to get to it, you can still type something in and we can circle back. But now it is my pleasure to welcome today's guest, Heidi Meyer. Heidi is the Executive Director for the Office of Admissions at the University of Minnesota. She has over 20 years of experience in the undergraduate admissions profession. A native Minnesotan, Heidi received her undergraduate and graduate degrees from the University of Minnesota Twin Cities campus. She is a member of several regional and national admissions organizations, including the National Association of College Admissions Counseling and the American Association of Collegiate Registrars and Admissions Officers. It is my pleasure to welcome Heidi Meyer. Thanks for being here.
Great. Thank you so much, John. It's good to be here, and it's good to be able to talk about the college search process, something that is very near and dear to my heart. Today, we're going to talk about basically the freshman admission search. It's also important to note, though, that about a third of our new students at the University of Minnesota come in as transfer students. So if any of you have questions about transferring, I would just encourage you to type that question in, and we'll make sure to get the questions answered. But again, today we're going to focus mainly on freshman admission. I have a list of things that we're going to talk about. And we're going to start with information about the University of Minnesota. Hopefully everybody knows a little bit about the University of Minnesota, but things may have changed here on the Twin Cities campus since perhaps you were a student here. So just as a reminder, we're the flagship campus of the University of Minnesota system. We have more than 150 different majors, 35 different languages, and we're one of very few institutions that has a medical school, dental school, veterinary medicine, and a law school all in one area. And we're really a vibrant community. When students are considering the university, they are admitted to one of 7 different freshman admitting colleges. And we have a list here of our popular majors like engineering, psychology, biology, but you know, we really have pretty much everything here on campus. I also wanted to provide you with a little bit of information about our school profile. These are the entering class for the fall 2017 group. You'll see that we had about 6,195 students who ultimately enrolled at the university last fall as freshmen. This was a larger class than what we had originally anticipated and that what we would like going forward. So we are planning on keeping our admission or our enrollment at about 5,900, so just a little bit higher. And then we also have some demographic and some academic information to give a general sense of who is a great fit at the University of Minnesota. So the middle 50th percentile for ACT scores. That means 50% of our students who who entered had an ACT score of between 27 and 32. Of course, there were 25% who were enrolled with higher than that, and there were 25% of students enrolled with lower than that. Our average high school rank is about the top 15, 14% of the class. We have about 22% students of color at our institution in the freshman class. Our freshman class is comprised mainly of Minnesota residents. Our commitment as a land-grant institution is to Minnesota residents, although we do also accept students from all over the country and a number of different countries as well. I want to talk about myths regarding college admission because it's really easy to get information that is maybe not true or also maybe a little outdated. So let's talk a little bit more about those myths. The first one is that your student has plenty of time to begin the search. Now, I realize that the title of this session is Reducing Anxiety, so please know that while there is time, if you have a son or daughter who is in the 9th grade, this is a great opportunity to consider high school course selections. Your college focus can start as early as 9th grade in selecting courses that kind of fit your interest area. So if your student definitely is interested in math or science, it's really important that they begin taking those higher level math and science courses in high school. So that means they need to be prepared for those higher level math and science courses maybe in their senior year. So that means that they need to take strong academic courses in their 9th and 10th year. And in grades 10 and 11, it's really important to take some time and visit colleges and universities. There are certainly a lot of different colleges and university options out there, and students, it's really helpful to know if you want a big school, if you want a small school, if you want a medium school, if you're looking at a public, if you're looking at a private. The best way to figure that out is to walk on campus. And then certainly in grades 11 and 12, it's really important to start looking at deadlines. Many colleges will have application deadlines in the fall of their senior year. So you want to make sure that you've done everything possible to have all of your information reviewed by that application deadline. And I just wanted to be able to provide you a sense of what our deadlines are for the University of Minnesota Twin Cities campus, just to give you an idea of what that might look like for other schools that are being considered. So our application becomes available August 1st. And again, this is for next fall of 2019. Our website is always updated to indicate each subsequent year, but think about this for fall of 19 admission. So application is available in August. Our first deadline is an early action deadline on November 1. This means that students who apply by November 1 will receive an earlier decision. Students who apply by our regular decision deadline of January 1 will hear a decision that's later than the students in that November 1 population. So for example, this past year, students who applied by November 1 heard a decision by the end of January, and students who applied by January 1 heard their decision by the end of March. The other really important date to remember is May 1. May 1 is the deadline for students to confirm their college of choice. And this is a national deadline. So any college or university you're looking at, their application deadlines might be different, but that confirmation deadline is always the same. So your target and your focus is to have that decision by May 1. Another myth is that your student's ACT or SAT score is everything. The simple fact of the matter is that it's something, but it's not the only thing. Your student is much more than just a test score. Admission decisions are based on a number of different factors, and academics are very important, but they don't tell us the whole story. Now, academics are the most important part of our review process, but we also, and other institutions also, want to know more information about students. So when we're asking students to provide us with information about where they work or where they volunteer or what matters to them as a student, that gives us a better idea of who they are and how they will contribute to our vibrant community. One way to kind of lessen test anxiety is by helping students become familiar with standardized testing. Sometimes it's just really how to take the test. There are multiple resources that can support test prep. There are books, there are websites, the ACT and the College Board, which administers the SAT, have that information, have a lot of free information actually on their websites. So if your student has anxiety about taking the test, they may just want to take some practice exams, again, available for free on the ACT and College Board websites. And again, please do help your student understand that this is a single test. It's one moment in time. It does not override every single academic decision that they made in high school. So those are things that are really important for students to pay attention to, but I think it's one thing that students can be really anxious about. Another item is that the longer the resume, the better. And certainly it's important to be active, but colleges and universities are looking at substance, they're looking at commitment. We want students to be passionate about what they're passionate about, and we can usually see that in their application. If they have been a member of 500 different organizations for a few months, it's a little hard to understand what they're passionate about. But if they have been in an organization, let's say they've been in FFA for 4 years, and they do a lot of experiences that bolster that FFA experience, like they're in 4-H or they participate at the state fair. You know, those are all things that help us know more about the student and what they're really interested in. We always tell students that it's better to be an officer in your favorite club than a member of 20. So remember, it's really quality over quantity. We also think that participation in activities can really help students learn more about themselves. So we want students to be involved, but we want them to balance their involvement with academics and activities. So one suggestion is to just help your student understand and articulate why you're interested in certain activities and what that student is learning from those opportunities. That can also help in the college process, because as you're writing a resume, you might be able to articulate a little bit stronger why you chose one activity or one sport or one art experience over another. Another myth here is that college admission is a prize to be won. The fact of the matter is that every student will have multiple college options and have many, many right fits. Ultimately, the student will decide which is the best option for them. It's not really a game of winners and losers. Sometimes the fit is on the student side, and they don't want a large public institution. And while that certainly makes me sad, because I want everybody to consider the University of Minnesota Twin Cities, I also want that student to be really successful. And if a small private institution is the best fit and makes that student successful in the long run, that's a win. So this is a mutual selection process. So they get to decide in the schools that they've been admitted. They can take a lot of different opportunities to talk to current students, to talk to faculty, to talk to staff, to walk around campuses and really figure out and try on a school for size. Your student doesn't have to do what everyone else is doing. They don't have to go to the popular school to go to. They have to think about what's important to them and how that college or university will best foster their interests and their passion and lead them to that next step, which we all want to be a career, right? Another myth is that everybody knows how the college admissions process works. The truth of the matter is you can get great information from high school counselors and from admissions professionals on campus, but you can also get a lot of rumored information from your friends, from your family, from people who've gone through the process before. Every single application cycle is a little different. So it's really best to get your information straight from the source. That means contact the university, contact the college, work with your high school counselors. They've been through this process so many times. They know a lot about the college admissions process. And I'd really encourage students and their families to work with them and to work directly with the colleges and universities. The last myth, I think it's the last myth here, is that the college search process has to be stressful. And that's not true. There are a lot of ways that hopefully you can reduce stress, and it also can be a really exciting time for your student and for you as a family to really learn what piques an interest and what a student may be doing in 2 years and in 4 years. So it's always helpful to focus on fit and focus on what's most important. I do have some resources to talk about the journey and to help on the journey. I think, again, first of all, your high school college counseling office is really a great starting point. Many high school counselors have some scattergrams of students who, student metrics that have been admitted to a variety of institutions across the country. That can be helpful in the application process. They also have students who've probably applied to a lot of different institutions across the country, and so they kind of know those experiences. So if you say you're interested in a school that is a small private school in a really large metro location, they might be able to give a variety of different options that you didn't even consider. Similar, if you're looking for a large public institution, they might be able to give a lot of options that were completely outside of your realm of possibility. So use them as a resource. Additionally, the Minnesota Office of Higher Education has some interesting resources on campus or on their website that I think will be helpful for students and families. They have a guide to preparing for college, and that's a lot about course selection and how to visit and you know, those things. But then they also have the guide to paying for college, which we all know that college is valuable, but it's also can be very expensive. So it's important to balance the value of a college education and what you need to pay for it. And I think they do a really good job of providing information about what financial aid looks like, scholarships, grants, loans. They also have a choosing a college checklist and worksheets available as well. Another resource is the National Association of Collegiate Admissions Counseling. They are the organization that governs college counseling on the high school side as well as admissions counseling on the college side. So they have a wealth of knowledge on the college search process and also a wealth of resources on the college search process. Another resource, a great resource, is your admissions counselor. And every college or university that you are going to be considering has a college admissions counselor that really works with who they are working with, who they are recruiting as a student. I wanted to just show you an example of our website right here, because you can see that our website, you have a variety of options to choose an admissions counselor. While we have somebody who's assigned to every student in our pool, you might want to talk with somebody else. Perhaps you want to meet with a counselor who's in one of our freshman admitting colleges. Perhaps you want to search by the person who works with your state. Perhaps you want to work with a counselor who works specifically with a community of color that you identify with. Or if you're from Minnesota, you want to work with the specific person who is your high school admissions counselor. So We have a very robust way of organizing our admissions counselors. Not all schools will do it exactly this way, but all colleges and universities will have somebody for you to reach out to, somebody for you to talk with, and their sole job is to work with you and your student through the process. So I'd really encourage you to work with them directly. Another key to reducing anxiety here, I know I said at the very beginning that the college search can start right now, but you can also ease into it a little bit. Map out a plan. Don't just start right in the middle and feel like you have to take the search process from 0 to 100. Sit down, map out a plan, start again with course planning, list your favorite subjects, possible jobs, possible careers that identify with those subjects. And think about tools that will help you identify those academic programs to a career. And I'm going to show you an example. On our website, we have majors.umn.edu. This is a list of all the majors and minors that are offered at the University of Minnesota Twin Cities. And I think this is a really helpful resource to narrow down interests. So if you type in the Explore field, health, everything that's connected to health will pop up in maroon text. So you can see that there's a variety of different health options. It doesn't necessarily have to have health in the title to be connected to the healthcare industry. Another way to do this is if you typed in environment into the Explore field and you clicked on the major fisheries, wildlife, and conservation biology, you'll see just a little bit more about the major, about the specialization, about other minors or majors that might be of interest, and also the careers that one can get with an interest in the environment. And I think this helps narrow down an interest area to a career. And we're not saying that students have to absolutely know what they want to do well before they get to college, but it kind of helps to have some sort of focus on what you're interested in studying and also what you're not interested in studying. And we talked earlier about high school course requirements. I wanted to share a list of our minimum high school requirements for the University of Minnesota Twin Cities. And these are going to be very standard for other colleges and universities, but I would encourage you to take a look for these on the college websites that interest your student. And note that while these are the minimum course requirements, most students who are admitted exceed these requirements. And in addition, if a student is interested in engineering or they're interested in biology, they're going to want to take 4 years of math, including calculus, and they're going to want to take 3 years of science, which includes biology, physics, and chemistry. So those are things that, look at as a resource, but then also contact the college and talk about what the options are at your high school. Colleges will give you recommendations on what to register for based on long-term the major that a student is interested in. And then, as I mentioned before, it's really great if a student can become familiar with different types of campuses. So if you are on a vacation and your student is in 9th and 10th grade, or if there's a school in your own backyard, walk around campus, at least do that walkthrough, just to get a feel of, do I like this environment? Would I wish it were smaller? Do I wish it were bigger? Those are things that can really be helpful to narrow down a lot of colleges. I would also highly encourage a formal campus visit, at least by the junior year. We have students doing formal campus visits in as early as 9th and 10th grade as well. If you attended an institution, if you are a University of Minnesota alumni, that's great. But the University of Minnesota Twin Cities may have changed since you graduated. So it's really important to get a current view from whomever does the campus visit process. At the University of Minnesota Twin Cities, it's the Office of Admissions. And we do have information provided here about how to schedule a visit. Another way to just get on campus is to encourage your student to participate in a camp on a college campus. Sometimes that's good enough, or a seminar, or attend a concert, something that gives them some experience that's outside of just an event, but helps them see the university or the college and students around. Oftentimes we hear that students are familiar with our campus because they attend a sporting event, which is great. We love students to support our Gophers, but our athletic facilities are on the edges of campus, so you may not actually see the campus and walk through Kauffman Memorial Union or walk through Smith Lab and see a chemistry lecture. So those are things that are really important when you are considering colleges and universities. And then, of course, explore with your student. Look at college sites. Figure out what's interesting, what's not interesting. A lot of institutions have virtual tours. So if you can't actually get to the campus, take a look at a virtual tour. Attend a college fair. A lot of high schools have college fairs, but there are also national college fairs supported by the National Association of College Admissions Counseling, and those are located all around the United States. And that can help you that can help you get in contact with admissions staff from colleges that you may never have considered before. And remember, the student is ultimately in the driver's seat. So we do want this to be the student experience. They do need to decide which college is the best fit for them, because we want them to make an enrollment decision that ultimately ends in a four-year graduation decision. That is what I have for you today. I want to thank you so much for participating. I know that we have one question here, and that is, how does PSEO play into freshman admission? PSEO, post-secondary enrollment options, is a great option for students to take college coursework while they are in high school. And certainly when we are reviewing students for admission, we take into consideration the rigor of coursework that a student has taken. Typically, students who are most successful at the university and most successful in admission are those who have taken the highest level of curriculum that they can and still be successful in that. So PSEO is a great option for students.
You know, one question that and if anyone has some questions here in the final few minutes, definitely feel free to type them in. One question I often get from alumni when they're just talking to me at events is, let's say, how does the placement process work as far as applying for the U? And let's say the student wants to ultimately get into one college, but then maybe gets admitted into a different one.
That's a great question. So when a student applies for admission, they can apply to two colleges, their first choice and an alternate choice. In that alternate choice college, when we review them for their first choice first. If we find that maybe their course preparation or their academic credentials aren't in line with students that we're able to admit to that first choice, we'll consider them for a second choice. Mm-hmm. If we admit them to a second choice, we want them to have an expectation that they may not be able to go into their first choice ultimately. Mm-hmm. Admission is competitive at the secondary level, so if you're a freshman and you're looking to go into the Carlson School of Management or the College of Science and Engineering, you may not be admitted to that college. You typically have to take a certain number of prerequisite courses and do well in those courses, and it always depends year to year. But when we're admitting a student to an alternate college, we are admitting them with the understanding that they have an interest in that alternate college, mm-hmm. and ultimately would be happy to graduate from that program. It's not impossible to transfer, but it is a little more challenging.
Sure, sure. And yeah, and I've actually ended up talking with a lot of students where they maybe were admitted to that alternate college, but have found, I mean, there's all sorts of career paths that people take, no matter what college or major that they're in.
And one other thing I was just going to mention, when we ask students to provide us information about their major interest area on their application, we also have a free form text box so that they can tell us a little bit more about why something interests them. And sometimes that prompts us to believe that another major is actually a better fit for them overall. Because we have so many majors, they might not know about all the major options that we have. I know there's another question about what if interests change. Interests can change, certainly, and we have a lot of students who come in as undecided students. What happens is that they work with their counselor at the university, at their advisor, and their advisor will help them select courses that would be the most opportune to and most well-fitted and well-suited to a variety of different majors. We also have a really great office here on campus called the Center for Career and Academic Planning and Exploration, and their sole focus is to really help match a student's passions and interest areas with a major. They do a really good job in supporting students in finding a good fit. I'm reading a question about students and their course selection, and particularly honors, AP. I would even throw in college in the schools or PSEO classes. Students don't need to take every single class at the honors level. They don't need to take every class AP. They don't need to take every class PSEO. That is not a requirement for admission. However, it's important for students to be taking a rigorous curriculum, the most rigorous curriculum that they can, and still be successful. So when we're reviewing students, we're going to look at what courses are available at their high school, and what courses that student took compared to the courses that are available. Again, it does not mean that every student needs to take an AP class, every AP class there is. But I would encourage students to take courses that make sense. If a student is a really great English student, they should take all the English honors and AP and college in the schools classes that they can, to help lay that foundation for college. If they are a really great science and English student, they should take science and English at a higher level. If they're not the best math student, they shouldn't take AP math, AP calculus. They should take calculus or a regular math course in which they will be successful, knowing that they will have to take math here at the university regardless of their major. So it's really important that students take the curriculum that best suits them.
Well, thank you so much, Heidi, for being here today. I know this was definitely enlightening for me, and hope that it was for the folks online, and especially sharing all the different resources that are online through the admissions website.
Great. Thank you so much, and good luck, everybody, in the college search.
All right. Well, thank you, Heidi. And that's it for today's webinar. I just want to thank everyone again for taking time to join us today. Come back on May 18th for our final May webinar with Dean Laura Bloomberg of the Humphrey School. Thank you again to all those online and who are listening to this recording afterwards. And we'll talk to you soon.